All right, we're good to go.
Okay, well, I think maybe it's my turn, and I'm very excited to be here with all of you. I love the stories. I just always enjoy this Thursday call so much, and just anytime, that we have an experience where we can share and listen to each other. It really is the foundation of our business, and we talked about that a lot last time. But we're all about the story. We're just paid storytellers. So, for those of you who may be joining us for the first time tonight, I'll start with my own story. I know many of you know it, but I now have been with the Juice Plus Company 32 years. And that still shocks me because my background was not anything that I thought would be, that would apply to something of this nature. It was education. I taught at Nicholls State University in South Louisiana, which is where I'm from. Before that, I taught kindergarten. I'm a mom. I've got a couple of children. They're grown adults now, of course, and there's a grandchild. So I live in California today because they're all here and grandbabies rule. So I pay attention to that. Okay. But 32 years ago, I found myself in a very serious and frightening situation. Um, our economy, as you heard Marilyn talk about economy and others tonight, you know, um, so many things are dictated by the manner in which, those things come and go. And in the mid to late 80s in Louisiana, we had a particularly bad time. The petroleum, oil, and gas business was the foundation for our income. That all moved to the Middle East. And even though the country itself was in pretty good shape, Louisiana really had an economic depression that was unparalleled. And everyone lost their jobs because all the jobs had moved. With that came all types of problems. People lost their homes. Many marriages came apart. Mine was one of them. And I found myself in a situation that was extremely frightening. My children were middle school, and by that time, my parents were gone. It wasn't like I could just take my kids and go home. It was very frightening. And teaching in Louisiana was, it was something that was very enjoyable, but and I always loved that particular profession, but it just didn't create enough income to keep us above struggle. So I was trying to expand my perception as to how I could create additional income. I came across this company, and I can remember thinking, I don't know about this. I'd never really come across, businesses of this nature in the past. And so I thought, I could maybe make it something that would be part-time. The products made sense. And so it was going to be part-time. And by the end of that first year, I'd created by far more income than I could ever hope to create teaching. I realized that this was a teaching profession, much more so than anything else. And so I decided school was out and this would be my full-time career. And so it's been an amazing adventure and continues to be. I love the community. I love the unity. I love the fact that, all through life and after 32 years, most every type of individual comes along. People from, as we hear, from all walks of life, from all ages. I love the community and the diversity of it. I really love the fact that we've probably been through everything that you could possibly go through from a life standpoint, alongside each other, sometimes ourselves, but people are always there to support each other, to encourage each other, to help each other do well. And I think just from a standpoint of living in the world at the hopefully your highest level of existence in all areas of life, it's an important thing if you can find a place where people truly are supportive of each other. So I love the fact that we connect here on Thursday nights. This really is hopefully a very basic training that we all want to stay connected to. I have come to learn over the years that techniques come and go. A rotary dial phone today is technology and doesn't even remember what a rotary dial phone was. That's what we had then. But we get to see each other, on a weekly basis across town, across the country, across the world. These types of things, technology changes, the way we interact might change. As I said, the techniques, but the basics are all the same. I do exactly the same thing today as I did 32 years ago and as I have done every year. And when you really get comfortable with the basics, there's a strength that comes along with this, that you realize whatever happens, we have a wonderful new, I'm calling it a facelift to our marketing model. And, that's a little bit of something that, we have to readjust and rethink. But at the same time, it's exciting, but the basics are still the same. The basics are always the same. And of course, story is the foundation of the basic. Didn't we all just love this last 30 minutes? I mean, even though I know both of those people, it's now there is, really all four, Carol and Jocelyn's mom, and Marilyn and Bonnie, all of you that spoke, you know, I certainly know you, but then to hear your story again, it not only reinforces my own joy in doing what I do, but it really is, you realize it's that you want to stretch out to the next person, the person who hasn't heard it yet, and all those people that are out there waiting, because it can change so many people's lives, and for the better, always for the better. So really our business is one of storytelling. As I said, we do that with and for each other, because in doing that with and for each other, we lay the foundation for the exposure for what we do to everyone else. So we kind of become window dressing, you might say, for one another. We are the pictures, the story of what life can be and what we do. So stories, again, you want to collect stories, and bring people to hear stories, wherever those stories might happen. Whether it's a call like this, whether it's one-on-one and you're telling the story, whether it's in an in-home presentation, or it might be at a gathering, as Jocelyn said, and her mother, I think as well, we're all meeting tonight for another event after this. I think it's kind of like going to dinner for a meetup and just share with people what we do. So there's a lot of joy that goes around storytelling. But let's talk about some of the things that are just very, very basic. And I think sometimes the basics get forgotten in a sense, or we feel like we know them so well, we don't turn around and continue to teach or talk about them. I think, first of all, in a marketing model like this, it's important to realize that, we're in a numbers business. It's how much exposure can you create? Now, what I love about it is that everybody is important and everybody counts out in the world. And everybody that's part of the team. I mean, we're individual, but together, we're a very powerful unit. But as you go through the world, I mean, for myself, I've always looked at my business that people they're a long line. They're stretched right out into infinity, right up to the moon. And I'm just going through that line, telling both my product and my business story. So I go through the line. You interested? No, move out of the way. You interested? No, move out of the way. I'm not emotionally invested until I come to that person who says, I'm interested. And then I stop to tell the story. Now, because we're all caring people, our business tends to attract people who care for others. We almost, especially in the beginning, people feel that responsibility that says, oh, let me make sure I stop long enough to convince this person who's not ready to hear. Let me stop long enough to convince this person who may not be ready to hear. And in doing that, you miss those people who are ready to hear. So what I'm going to encourage you to do, and to teach those people who are new and starting with you, is that not everybody has to say yes. And they may say yes now, they may say yes later, they may never say yes. It's not for you to really, convince everyone that comes along. It's to share the story and then service those people who are ready. It doesn't mean that those people who are not ready are not valued and loved and cared about. It's just that your time is really what you get paid for, is how you invest that time every day. So it becomes very, very important to really look at your time as the commodity that you have for investment to get the best return. So too often a new team member will try to stay too long to convince the person who's not ready to hear. And then there's frustration for that new team member because they're not getting the feeling of success that comes along with moving through that line relatively quickly to look for that person who is ready to hear. So hopefully, as simple as that is, it's clear, and you know, it's understood that it's huge as far as your business is concerned. Your time and where you put your time and how you utilize your time every day in all aspects of your business is going to really determine how you're paid. Jeff Roberti is my sponsor, and when I first started, he kind of wrote this note out and made me tape it on the wall over my desk so I'd see it every day. And it said, "Is this activity making you money now?" So that applies to many different things in your business, from whether you're going to organize your desk. I mean, uh, my desk gets organized about once a year. I only let people see it on that month. Okay, after that, you can ask Missy. It's kind of I'm one of those people that I can live in a disorganized organization, but because my time is really most valued when I'm speaking with people and telling the story in whatever aspect that might be. Tonight it's an event, it might be a three-way call tomorrow, whatever. But it's how do you go through and create exposure. Now, another thing that's really important that people, you know, either neglect to pay attention to, or because it's so simple that we don't, you know, we more or less take it for granted, is that you really can't prejudge or predetermine who will do your business or buy your product and who will not. And we all tend to do this. I mean, even to this day, I have to check myself, because I will, you know, think about somebody or meet somebody and I'll think, oh, I don't know, they've got everything they could possibly need. I don't know if they'd be interested in this. Or sometimes that little feeling of intimidation, no matter how long you've been here. But it's really, really important not to prejudge or predetermine who needs anything, who wants anything. Now, we know everybody desires to be healthy. They want the best health possible. And so it's pretty easy to move through that line and talk about the product, because we know that everybody wants the very best health possible. When it comes to the business, though, people tend to have that, feeling, well, do they want this? Would they want it? Do they need it? Will they think? What will they think? And what I have noticed over the years is when you get to the point where you don't care what they think. Now, it doesn't have to come from a negative standpoint. It could come from the standpoint that you know the value of what you have to offer. You know the value of the product. You know the value of the business. Just listen to Marilyn tonight, or Bonnie, or, you know, any of us tell our stories. And, you know, just look at the value that someone was able to give them for their life. So for myself, it came to this point many years ago, I have the most valuable thing I could possibly offer to anyone, from both a product and a business standpoint. And it's my, you know, responsibility, a moral responsibility. So I don't care what they think about me telling them, or whether they will or they won't. I'm going to do my part, my job, you might say, my responsibility to myself as well as what I do, and make sure that everybody I come across knows that story. So don't prejudge or predetermine. Know that it's numbers, that you have to go through the numbers to get the response, because, you know, again, it's just the fact that the more people you talk to, the greater return you're going to get. That's just statistics. So if you can have that clearly, that you want to, you know, tell as many people as possible, create as much exposure as possible. And the person to person, you know, in real life, you might say, connection is always the strongest. The other thing I think that's really important is really recognizing that you can, and this is very important to help new people, that you can discipline your disappointments and you can teach other people to discipline theirs. And that's not the easiest thing in the world. None of us ever want to be disappointed. But so often the new distributor starts out, or the new partner now, as we say, and they're all excited, and their vision is that everybody is going to be as excited as they are. They're all going to be in love with it. They're going to be in love with the whole idea. And so because that emotion is so strong, you know, the first person that says no, it's not, you know, next. It's usually the weight of, you know, should I be doing this? Why am I doing this? You know, it's that feeling of rejection. So if you can help people before they even start, realize that that's going to be part of the journey. that there'll be, people who will say yes, there'll be people who will say no. It has nothing to do with you whatsoever. It has to do with where they are in life. So it's just a matter of how do you discipline that disappointment. For some people, they have to change their state. They have to run around the block or get up and, do something else for a while to take your mind off the disappointment. But for me, it's always been, and it's interesting because I didn't realize this at first, but what happens to me when somebody says no is there's something in my head that says, if you think you'd be good at this, just wait and you see who I find next. So it's almost like it's a little challenge that says, go find somebody and just, show the world that this is as wonderful as we know it is and that people are going to love it. You just need to tell as many as possible. So now that you're telling people, you've got people, interested. You have people now who are becoming team members. Last week we went over, where do you go to find team members? And I'll just hit those highlights quickly once again. If you have a business that's been here for a while, you're going to go back to all your existing partners or distributors and see who wants to play at a higher level, who wants to go to the next level. Right now, we have a lot to go back to people with. The fact that we have so many new things, the bonuses that are in place, the fact that our pay plan now is going to pay even more than it has in the past. So there's a lot to go back to those team members with. So you find out who wants to play. Certainly, again, going through your customer base. And we talked a lot about that, but going to those customers, hopefully with your upline, in tow, congratulating that person for, their commitment to their own health and what do they love about the product and have they ever thought about being in business for themselves. So, that customer pool should stay as full as possible so you can always go fishing there for the new team members. I heard Bonnie say that she keeps what I would refer to as an active contact list, is that you're meeting people during the day, you are talking to people. It's a process. Team development is a process. So you're going to be creating friendships. And it might not be the first thing out of your mouth when you have conversations when you first meet people. It may be 2 or 3 conversations before you introduce what you have or your product and your business. I have a tendency to always talk about both. And I think the reason is that I love our business so much. It really took care of and still takes care of my family. It really took us out of, just heavy fear and stress. And I love being able to see the light come on beside someone's eyes when they realize this could be the answer for me too. So I always have a tendency to talk about both. But that active contact list, who you meet during the day, who you think of that maybe you hadn't thought of before. Writing that down is very, very powerful because then it gives you a structured, way to go back and begin to organize talking to people. And of course, for me too, it's on what I call on the street warm market. I'm meeting people and talking to people during my day. And I love that. I like stretching out in the world wherever I go. If I'm buying a juice, at the juice place, or I've gone to, a store or whatever, I'm making sure that I frequent those places often if I like them so that I get to know the people well and their names and their families and so that, I can talk about what I do, my family, and we can get into those conversations that then bring the return of them becoming part of your team. So now you have team members and you've more or less helped that person launch. You've gotten the names. You're talking about the team that they may have or that you're going to help them grow. But this is something that's been very powerful for me, and I wanted to share it with you tonight. And again, it has to do with your time. We get our team in place. Hopefully that little core foundation begins to start with 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 team members directly to you, maybe more. But then you look at where do you put your time? And as your business grows, your time is going to be more and more There'll be more demand, and it'll become much more important for you to really be focused on making sure that your time gets the return. So if I'm talking about time and a new team member or new team members, it's, how do I recognize a leader so I'll know where to put my time? And there are three areas that I look for. And this has been my entire career, and I do this today still. So how do you recognize a leader? How do you recognize where to put your time after someone has signed the line, so to speak? Well, first of all, a leader is someone who will have a lot of questions. They might be questions about product and business. They're usually both. And for our particular business with Juice Plus and then our business itself, it's usually more business questions because they're starting a business. So, but they're usually especially business questions. The thing about a leader or the person you want to put your time into is they're not going to keep asking you the same question over and over and over as time goes on. If I've gone through and, now once or twice is fine, okay, till they get clear on it. But they take that information and they utilize it to move on, to grow into, another position, other phases, but they're not coming back to almost starting point to keep asking you over and over, even though it's days later or sometimes weeks later. So a leader is someone who may have a lot of questions, may have skepticism, but we get those things answered, we get them taken care of, and they move on to the next step. The most important thing that a leader will do, and this is where my time goes, is that person wants you to talk to everybody that they know and tell the business story to them. Now, the product story is pretty easy. Fruits, vegetables, berries, omegas, everybody understands those. We know how important it is for the body. There's not a lot of training that needs to go on there, and there should not be, because simplicity is what makes this work. But the new person who's really going to take off in my business is trying to put me on the phone with everybody they can possibly find or on the Zoom or whatever to tell the business story. And of course, you're going to have to tell some product story in there too. Those two things go hand in hand. But your new leader likes the idea of putting team together. So my time is going to go there. And the third area, the third thing is a leader really wants to be the one who's got their team together and now they're doing those things for the team. They're, on the line, they're telling the story. Their story is now growing, and then they're pulling stories from other directions. They're gathering stories, but they want to be the one, we used to say, with the pen in their hand, because we usually did this in front of a presentation room. They want to be the one who's now doing it with their team. So these are the three areas that I'm going to tell my brand new distributor partner when we sit down to make the list, that I'm going to say to that distributor partner, this is what I look for in a leader. This is what you want to look for as you put your team together, for the leaders that you're looking for, that you want on your team. This is what you look for. Now, if I tell a new person, these are the things, and this is what you look for, what do you think they will do? They will do these things because they want to be a leader. So what I'm doing is really giving them not only direction, but auto-suggestion on the behavior that's going to get my attention and is going to make them grow. So without even realizing it, they wind up being the people who, get the questions, incorporate the information. They put me in front of people right away. They're wanting to lead their team. And so it works very well from both directions, if that makes sense. Another thought or two, and then I thought we've got 5 minutes or so. Maybe we can see if anyone has any questions or if I can clarify anything. I thought I'd share with you, and a lot of this stuff we can also, I've got all this on computer. If you ever want any of these things, I can certainly send them out. We can get a list of everybody or send them to the national marketing directors, and the uplines can pass them down. But really what you're doing, you're telling the story. you're creating exposure so that you have the opportunity to invite people to, either buy your product or, do your business. So really what you're doing with the story, with all of this, is you're approaching and you're closing. You're approaching and you're closing. You're approaching and you're closing. Um, a lot of times people think that, a close, and this is partially true, is when you get the order for the product or for the business. But there's a space in between there, okay, in the process of the conversations and the connection and the relationship building. And so, really, the way you want to think of closing is that every conversation you're closing for the next conversation, for the next conversation, until you get the order for the product or the business or both. So from the time you have the first conversation till the time that you have the team member or the customer, you want to make sure that you close out each conversation with, you might say, the next time you're going to speak. It's very common for me at the end of any conversation about, our business or our product, or even if we haven't gotten there yet, it's like, well, where do we go from here? When do we want to talk again? Even if I'm building a friendship and we haven't even gotten a product or business, it's going to be something to the effect of, well, when would you like to talk next? Where do we go from here? What do you need from me if it's product or business that we're talking about? So make sure that you don't leave it open-ended, that you are closing for the next time that you're going to speak. Because too often things just kind of fall through the cracks, you might say, because of that. Also, my very best close, though, from a business standpoint all these years has been this, is that when I get to the point where I know the person well enough, this will be the question I ask, is what is it that you really want to create for yourself? What do you want for yourself and your family? And so I really try to get that person to think about, what is it that, if they could change things, if we might talk about, if you go to the mailbox and there's a check in there, how much would it need to be to make you smile? Most people tell me between $500 and $1,500. Yeah. So, and then the next thing is, what would you do with that? What would that look like? But that getting people to think about what do they really want for themselves and what do they want for their family going forward. For me, the big thing was I wanted college education for my children because I knew I couldn't do it on a teaching salary in Louisiana, even though I taught in a university. It was very important to me. So that was the first big thing on my agenda. So once I get that, then this next part is really what the close is my question is, what are your options to make that happen? Most people have not even gotten to the point where they are thinking about, what they really want for their lives and their family because, or in a bigger picture, because they're so busy trying to survive or to take care of what they have to take care of. But rarely have they gotten to the point where they will then, think about what are the options they have to make that happen. And then it's the perfect segue to really start up with, I have no idea if this is for you or not. I didn't even think it was for me when I first saw it, but it's made such a difference for my life. Have you ever thought about being in business for yourself? I might point out the things that I see in the person that I know would really fit our business well. They're people, or their energy. They love health, or they love children, or whatever it is that's come up that I know fits. I'm going to talk about it. But you have to really give people a picture, I think, that where they're thinking about themselves, because when a person makes the decision to do this, whether it's buy your product, do your business, both, there's got to be something in the back of their head that's, first of all, the question is, what's in it for me? That's normal in anything you buy. And then the next thing would be, that makes sense. I could do this. So I heard Bonnie, I heard, all of you tonight that told your stories. She told you exactly when it hit, that it made sense. Okay. So that's what you're really doing. You know, I mean, Marilyn, the same, you know, she told you when it hit, when it clicked, that it made sense. So what you're doing is you're just, you know, having enough conversation to draw the person to the point where they're going to have that thought that says, yeah, I could do this. That makes sense. Okay, well, I did talk the whole time. Okay, but why don't we do this next week is I really want to do question answer on some of these sometime, because I feel like every now and then we should do that. It's hard sometimes to know exactly what people need. You know, when you're doing training, I really believe though that if we can stay focused on basics, whatever the marketing model is, we know our company is an amazing company. And what I love about them is they know they're not going to do well unless we do well. We have to all do well together for this to work. So they're going to make sure that we do well. And if our efforts are there, our marketing plan pays. Technology is going to, you know, continue to create wonderful and amazing things. You know, I've been waiting for the day when I could just speak to these machines and they would just do whatever I said. That's my fantasy. Okay. And it can happen. Sometimes that happens now. I can speak to Siri, but, you know, the thing is, the basics will never change. People will never change. The human connection, don't ever underestimate the power of human connection. We all want to feel needed. We want to feel that we belong to something that matters. We want to believe that we're productive and that we make a difference in our lifespan. And so if you can have that connection with people where you don't underestimate that power of just human connection, yeah, you've got it. You got it. You got it made. Okay. Well, it's been my pleasure. We're going to go on to the next event. We think party time is important. And so I'm going to be out the door. Okay. Great talking to everybody tonight.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
See you
Bye.
soon.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
Bye. Bye.
Good night.